Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshack if you want to call me by my in-game name, and I am really excited to be going over some more of the mean streets of gadgets and cards that have been revealed to us the past couple days. We have a part 1 of this if you guys haven't already seen it, where we covered the first, I think, 32 cards that Blizzard had kind of revealed to us, and Tony was actually in that one, and we actually got to take a look at the cards together, and we got both of our inputs going at it. But this one's just me, and we're going to take a look at some of these cards that were released since the part 1 video was released, which I think was about 3 or 4 days ago. So the first one's going to be for the warrior class. It's a 3-drop, 3/3 battle cry. Give your random weapon in your hand +1/+1. So this is basically an upgrade inside of a decently statted card, right? Most of the time, warrior has turn 3 they're not known for, right? We have turn 2, we've got the war axe. Turn 4 we have the Bloodhoof Brave, and then on turn 5 we've got now Iron Forge Portal. So we didn't really have anything on 3, right? We had like a shield block, a bash, but those are kind of not proactive cards. Those are bash is reactive to an opponent playing a minion, you'd want to kill it. Shield block is more of a card you want to combo with shield slam. So this kind of pawnbroker gives us the ability to play a card on turn 3, and also it equips an upgrade. So definitely see this in the pirate warrior deck that we see a lot, maybe aggro warrior, even some form of mid-range warrior, right? That would play more heavy side weapons. Because most of the time the war axe gets played on 2, so this won't be affecting the war axe, right? Because that gets played on turn 2 almost every time. So I'm not really sure what weapon this is aiming to upgrade, unless you have maybe an Arcane Reaper in your hand, or a what is it called? You're killing me. It's the what are you talking? It's the huge weapon that Hellscream uses. I want to say Grim Patron, but that's a card. You gotta be kidding me. It's a 7-drop weapon. Gorehowl. Oh my god, guys. This is what a 14-hour workday does to me. I don't even know what a Gorehowl is anymore. That was cringe. But yeah, so it'll actually make a Gorehowl an 8/2, and then Gorehowl can attack face, right? And that'll be 8. But a lot of the thing is, you think it's going to go down in durability. It will, but the attack will remain the same, because its effect says that attack only goes down if it kills a minion, not if it attacks directly. That only affects durability. So you actually can do 16 damage to face with a Gorehowl after you've basically upgraded it with the pawnbroker. But that's Gorehowl, and that's really late in the game. So I doubt that interaction will happen a lot. But I think for an Arcane Reaper, and it also makes King's Defender, just basically any weapon, maybe worth more to play, and it actually, when it sticks around in your hand, it makes it, more valuable. Makes it so if you don't play it right away, it doesn't feel as bad because you have cards like this in your deck. So I think in maybe an aggressive warrior deck, this could be a card that we'd see a play. In control warrior, probably not, because the only weapon again it would hit would be Gorehowl, and war axe is something again you just play on 2. So I really don't see a whole lot of action from this guy in control warrior. But as the card gets released, I can only see it as front. We don't have testing methods or anything, so just take it as it is. Next card is going to be a 2-drop, Stolen Goods. That's a really cool weapon you just stole. Give a random taunt minion in your hand +3/+3. So definitely that bolster warrior is coming strong in this expansion. Every expansion they give it a little boost, right? They supercharge it a little bit. And then with this expansion, they're definitely pushing it just as much as they have in the previous expansions. Giving it a little this, give it a little that, and eventually it will just like Beast Druid. They've been pushing that a long time, and finally with the Warden, it made it viable enough to play and do well, but not super viable where it's like tier 1, like they just pumped Shaman up so much. But I think this is just another chink at getting Taunt Warrior a thing. Maybe eventually it will be. I doubt it'll ever be a tier 1 deck, but definitely a cool deck at that, and a lot of combo based deck, because there's what is it? There's a card that someone had theory crafted. We won't talk about that. We'll talk about that in our theory crafted section. But there's a lot of cool things they can do with taunt minions to like duplicate them and do like combo based things to build up a big board full of taunt minions. That makes it so like field removal is necessary for your opponent to have, which means they have to play the layer game because they would just lose if they're playing aggro. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with it. But this is just kind of another just addition to the team. But it gives a random minion +3/+3. Which is basically, this is just a rampage for taunt minions. So why wouldn't you just play rampage instead? I know rampage has a cost, but this is like random and it's untargetable. So it's very, very similar, but it's just not taunt. I don't know. I think it's cool, but I don't think it's that great. But I think it's cool. Actually, I don't know. It might be played. We'll see. This guy though. the Armor Smith. The 5-drop 2/7 taunt. Whenever this minion deals damage, gain that much armor. That's insane. Imagine this with the stolen goods, right? +3/+3 turns into a 5/10 with taunt, and then whenever he deals damage, which means you can attack their face or attack a creature, it's gonna heal. It's not heal you, but basically generate armor, which is a better than healing, because healing caps out at 30 currently, because you can't overheal. But as for armor, again, you can go over 30, like we've seen so many warriors do all the time, which makes it so in the fatigue game they live longer, makes it so your opponent runs out of resources. You just basically make them run out of gas eventually, because you can just keep generating health. And it's just synergizes well with just any armor based ability like Shield Slam and things of that nature. So this is actually a really nice card, but I'm sure a lot of people have mentioned it because Priest is going to be so popular due to the fact that Dragon Priest got an overwhelming buff. I think Cabal Shadow Priest is going to be, a card that we see a lot more of, because Priest is going to be around more. And what better target than this guy for Cabal Shadow Priest, right? So definitely when we play this guy, we definitely want to throw some sort of buff on him so they can't steal him. But on top of that, if somebody cabals this, the game's basically over at that point. And I believe a few other streamers, they had mentioned that before, that Priest is going to be popular just because of all the stuff they've added to it so far. So just watch out for that, Warriors. The next class is going to be Rogue. I believe there's only one Rogue card, and that's why there's the legendaries in the list. I was actually pretty unsatisfied with this card, to be completely honest. Like, it's cool, right? It's a 3-drop 2/3, the Collector Stealth, so he'll probably stick around for a turn. Whenever this attacks, so he just has to attack, doesn't have to kill anything, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. So there's a couple things I want to mention about this card. First of all, I'm not a Rogue player, and I am now no Rogue pro. So what I have is basically just from the top and what I see going against Rogue, because you do have to know your opponent's classes. So I know how the Rogue class plays. I just don't play it myself, and this just doesn't really they're pushing Rogue to be this kind of like Burgle, just steal your opponent's card, very similar to Priest, but you don't get to pick which cards there are, so that leaves a pretty huge RNG factor and variance in there, right? Because you could steal a really good card, you could steal a really bad card, therefore changing how good this card is, right? So if it steals you a Bloodlust in the exact situation you need to win, then this card automatically turned amazing. But let's say, you're playing against a mage and you attack and it gets an Ice Lance. It's like, well, that didn't really help me at all. Sure, I can freeze a minion, but in comparison to something else you would have gotten, it could have been really good or really bad. So there's like a lot of variance, and that's randomness that a class such as Rogue shouldn't have to have, because the whole class is supposed to be combo based, very stealthy, which this does have. But I just don't understand the whole random card from your opponent's class. This should be more of a Priest thing, I feel like. And I know they have the Unicity Huckster, they have the 1/1 pirate, that Battlecry steal a card from your opponent's class. So like stealing cards, I understand that, but to just keep pumping those out for a class that, again, you're just not adding combo cards to, and it feels bad, because Rogue, again, I think it's a cool class, and I'll probably play more of it as time moves forward, like Malagos Rogue. But when they add cards like this, it's like, what are you gonna do? You're playing against a Shaman, you drop a 3-drop 2/3 with Stealth. It's like, okay, well, I have a 4-drop 7/7. Hello. like you gotta give me more, Blizzard. This Rogue is hurting. I just feel like this looks like a rare, right? This doesn't deserve the legendary slot. You make your legendary shit. Like, what the fuck was Anomalous? What the hell was Flame Leviathan? What the hell is Shaku, the Collector? He ain't collecting shit because he's just gonna die. But anyway, let's move on. The next class is going to be Paladin. We've got the Grim Street Outfitter. He's the 2-drop 1/1 Battlecry. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. So first thing I want to say, a lot of these cards that we're going to be seeing and have seen so far are cards that are buffing minions in your hand, or buffing whatever in your hand, whether it be minions or weapons, right? And this is going to affect quite a few things. First of all, it's going to give a reason for cards to sit in your hand longer. So let's say that you have, bad example, you have Tyrion in your hand, your opening hand, right? When you start playing cards that are buffing cards in your hand, whether randomly or all of them, it gives not maybe a reason, but it makes Tyrion being in your hand the entire game not so bad, because he keeps receiving these buffs. And whether, you know, it ever gets to that point in the game where you can play him or not, it's at least not as bad when you do play him that he's received some sort of benefit for being there such a long time. That's number one. Number two is that when people play these kinds of cards, it gives the incentive that the games might last longer, right? Because if the creatures are statted less, because obviously with abilities like this is a 2-drop 1/1. Normally 2-drops have, you know, a 2/3 or 3/2, and sometimes even a 3/4 overload 1 shaman. Hello. With creatures being statted less, I feel like the games will last longer because not as much damage is being dealt, and there's not as much aggro going on because everything isn't as big. More stuff is being controlled, more stuff is being buffed. You've got some manipulation on the board. So I think that this is a good direction. And first one, slowing down the meta maybe, and then giving a benefit to having cards in your hand for long periods of time that normally would feel really bad having. But that's my little rant on that. And I think it's, if you agree with me, go on and let me know what you think. But that's my first take on kind of the direction they're pushing and why they chose these particular abilities over others. But give all your minions +1/+1 in your hand. Battle Cry, 2-drop 1/1. First of all, you have to have creatures in your hand, right? And Paladin, I would have to say, has a reasonable amount of decent spells and a decent amount of creatures. I would have to say they have more creatures and spells in most of the decks, because you run qualities and consecrations. But besides that, what other real spells do you have? So there's definitely a good amount of creatures in your hand. I think it's a decent card. It's hard to say where it's going to be used, whether it's aggro, control, mid-range. But I think it's an okay card. I don't really see a huge issue with it. It's not just like a trash neutral or something like that. The next one's going to be a card that I think is really cool for the Paladins, and they don't really have a lot of, and I'll get into that in a second as well. It's a 5-drop 4/4, so the stats, again, you're paying a premium for his ability, and it's at the end of your turn, give all minions in your hand +1/+1. So first of all, just like Emperor Tharzan or Ragnaros or Ysera, you're going to be able to get this guy's ability the second you play him, right? So you're going to play this guy, at the end of your turn, it's going to trigger, all minions in your hand get +1/+1. But the thing is, it's a stacking, right? Every single turn that this guy lives, this is going to happen. And if you look at some of the most powerful classes right now, like Shaman, they have cards that if they sit on the field longer than 1 or 2 turns, it gives them such a huge advantage that it's so hard for the other player to come back because the card being on the board so long has given them a swing. And that would be cards like Thunderbluff Valiant. If that card sits on the board, you know, longer than 2 turns, the chances of you winning that game, if you're the opposing player, is very, very slim because of just the pure value generated. And if you look at Paladin, they don't have those kinds of cards. They don't have cards that if they sit on the field, they just win. They have cards such as Tyrion, right? Very, very good card, but the impact 6 attack isn't changing, right? It's always going to be 6 attack, and then Divine Shield, make good trades, you get the weapon. So there's like long lasting value, but there's no the continuous generation of value, if that kind of makes sense. But if you look at the Thunderbluff Valiant, every single turn you're buffing minions that are already out, and you're summoning new minions and buffing those as well, and it's just ever so increasing. It's just, if you don't deal with it, every turn it's getting worse. And this card kind of goes along with that. With if they don't deal with it, things are getting worse over time. And I don't think that this ability is overwhelming, right? +1/+1 at the end of every turn. Let's say he lives 2 or 3 turns because you can't deal with him. Yes, it's a good advantage, but it's not backbreaking, right? You're not losing a game because 2 creatures or 3 creatures got +2/+2. It sucks, and it's really good for the other player. But it's not game losing like a Thunderbluff Valiant or a Ysera staying on the field for multiple turns, or a Ragnaros. And that kind of costs also for 5 mana. You shouldn't have an ability that if it just sits on the field, you just win. For 5 mana, if it sits on the field, it's unfortunate and you're at a good place, but you just don't automatically win. Such as cards like you pay 8 mana or 9 mana, such as Ragnaros or Ysera. Those are cards that if they sit on the field not unchecked, then you should be able to win because it's a huge premium you're paying. Sorry for the little rant, but there's a lot of cool things and a lot of directions they took with this that I kind of want to express. This next one's going to be one of the tri-class cards, and I'll kind of go over that for those of you who didn't watch part 1 and what it actually means to be tri-class. But first, we'll talk about the card in general, and then I'll get into that. So it's a 3-drop 2/4 battle cry. Give a minion in your hand +1/+1. Very similar to the past 2 cards that we've looked at, just getting value from the hand. So I won't go on that too much. But the tri-class cards, if you can look at the ribbon up here, it shows the yellow ribbon, a red ribbon, and a green ribbon, and this basically means this card, this neutral card, can be played in Paladin, Warrior, and Hunter. So this one card can be played in all 3 of those classes. And they're coming out with a lot of cards that can only be played in, I think it's Mage, Priest. I don't know what the other one is, but there's specific, classes, or you can call them like little mobs or whatever. And it's really cool what they're doing with that, because it allows variety within the classes. It feels like a gang. That's the word, not mob, but gangs. So that's really cool. The next one's going to be the Hunter class, and we're going to take a look at what I think is a pretty good card, in my opinion. The 3-drop 3/3, the Zip Gunner. He's a Death Rattle. Give a random minion in your hand +2/+2. So I see this going into maybe Beast Hunter, or maybe a mid-range Hunter. Definitely, I don't see it in the Secret Hunter or the Aggressive Hunter, due to the fact that most of the time by turn 4 or 5, you have no cards in your hand, and if you top deck this guy, it really doesn't do anything for you. But let's say you're playing mid-range Hunter, and the games last a little bit longer than turn 6, if you're that kind of player who likes, the longer games. This is a minion that it's going to he basically is a 3-drop 5/5 in stats if you apply the 2/2 to another minion, but the thing is, you have to have another minion in your hand, and the game has to go long enough to play that minion in to get value out of it. So I think there is merit to playing this guy. He's a solid card, and he has a cool ability, and but I think he's going to be played in specific kind of Hunter decks, right? The more control-y later Hunters, not the more aggressive ones. The next one's going to be the 2-drop 3/2. So again, the stats are there. Trog, Beast Stranger, battle cry, give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. So this kind of just goes along with the whole beast thing I was just talking about, the Beast Hunter. So was the last card we looked at a beast? I don't think it was. No, it should be a beast, right? He's a fucking hyena. But anyway, give a random beast in your hand +1/+1. So he's basically a 2-drop 4/3. That's pretty good. This is basically an auto include in any beast deck, I suppose. Cool. Neutral 5-drop 3/5 Wind Fury. I guess it's a new card that can come out of Fireland's Portal. I doubt he's going to be played in any. He doesn't belong to any particular class. His stats, he has Wind Fury, but that doesn't really change much. 3 attack for 5 mana feels pretty bad. 5 health is okay. I guess he's just one of the kind of common cards that they had to make just to get through, right? Doesn't really affect anything too much. He's a decent get out of Fireland's Portal, right? And I would say if this guy had, like, I don't know, reverse the stats, 5/3 Wind Fury does 10 damage if left unchecked, which is 1/3 of someone's health. Yeah, but it only has 3 HP, which means it can be like quick shotted or frost bolted. Yeah, either way, I think it's just one of those commons they had to get through. Nothing really to see there. And then the last card that we're going to talk about and go over is Skamaz. I'm just kidding. Nah, this guy, he's decked out for sure. He's a 3-drop 3/4, so the stats are there. He's basically a spider tank, but he's got an ability and he's not a mech. After you cast a spell, refresh your hero power. Refresh your hero power, not use your hero power. So the hero, if you think about hero powers, like what hero power would you want to use a ton of? Paladin, Mage, Warrior. I mean, Rogue, you can't attack more than once a turn. Priest, I suppose. So I'm not really sure what deck this guy's gonna go into. There's no, this would be, I guess, a new archetype that would maybe arise. So I suppose if they release a card like this, they might give a reason. They might make a good Inspire card that wants to proc 2 times. Maybe it goes well with Paletress or something like that. I don't know. there's going to be something that this guy's going to go well with that maybe some people aren't going to see off the bat, or maybe they'll make it pretty obvious. But they obviously, there's some, whether it be this expansion or the next, there has to be a reason for this guy, because currently I can't really think of anything, right? Like, it's just, you have to cast it, you have to play this guy who has to be on the field, and then you have to cast a spell, and then you use your hero power, which already costs 2 mana, and then you can play a spell and then cast it again, which is already 2 mana. So you're already looking at 4 mana, and if you already cast this guy, that's 7 mana, and then you have 2 mana to cast a spell just to play your hero power again. I don't know. So that pretty much wraps up our review. Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below, of course, and all the cards we went over. If there's something I might have missed, again, haven't been able to play with the cards and the thoughts. These are basically my first looks at the card. I don't really go into deep analysis by myself. I kind of just look at the card briefly, bring it up here, and then we'll talk about it together. So reading your comments is actually really important when moving forward with these, so I can kind of get a broader aspect of things. And I look forward to reviewing some of the more, I look forward to reviewing the rest of the cards as they get announced. I'll try to keep, again, the cards in like the 10 to 20 card region, because I know watching those hour-long videos like me and Tony did can be kind of overwhelming. I want to keep the videos, 20, 25 minutes-ish. Hopefully this one's that length. But anyway, of course, I'm Warshack, and happy whatever the hell day it is.